Single dad cared for a mysterious woman for 3 weeks, then discovered she was a millionaire. Jake's breath fogged the window as he drove home from the shop, the tires crunching over the icy road. A long day of clanging tools and mounting bills played on repeat in his mind. Just another evening in the life of a hard-working mechanic striving to keep his auto shop afloat while raising 2 spirited kids on his own. His fingers gripped the steering wheel tightly as he fought fatigue when, suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye. By the side of the road, a woman stumbled, clutching her arm, the chill of the Midwestern night evident in her shivering frame. He hesitated but couldn't ignore her, fueled by an instinctive sense of compassion. His heart raced as he pulled over. "Hey, are you all right?" he called out, concern outweighing his own worries. She looked up, her eyes clouded with confusion. I need help," she stammered. Without a second thought, he helped her into the passenger seat, her breath matching the uneven rhythm of the tires against the road. Once home, the moment felt surreal. Jake had little to spare, yet he found himself cooking a simple meal, his children peeking around corners, their curiosity palpable. He tended to her injuries, feeling a strange connection spark amidst the chaos of his cluttered life. Days turned to weeks, and Lily regaled them with stories of a past filled with luxury and beauty, worlds apart from his grease-stained existence. Yet as Lily's presence grew, so did the whispers among his neighbors. "Is he falling for her?" they speculated, skepticism thick in their words. Jake brushed aside their comments, focusing on his kids who were bonding with her, laughter spilling over games they had never played before. But as he watched them share those moments, happiness swirling in the air, Jake felt a tug of war within himself. That night, as a blanket of snow settled over the town, muffling sounds, Jake overheard a heated phone call. Phrases like hidden assets and protective orders floated through the thin wall, nearly stopping his heart. Confronting her felt necessary, but also terrifying. When he finally did, she broke down, her dark secrets spilling forth. $1 million inheritance and an abusive ex-husband she had fled from. The revelation struck him like lightning. He felt conned, both astonished and betrayed. Did he help her out of kindness, or was he secretly longing for a life beyond the wrench and grease? The thought tantalized and terrified him. Was he subconsciously drawn to the comfort of her wealth? As they settled into an unexpected silence, tension filled the room, trust teetering on the edge of revelation. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Could he accept help from a world he had never known, a world embodied by the woman in front of him? The emotional heaviness clung to him as he looked into her eyes, feeling the weight of his own integrity. Meanwhile, his kids sensed the discomfort, their innocent laughter replaced by uncertainty. Just when Jake mustered the courage to speak, the doorbell rang, slicing through the atmosphere like a knife. Who was at the door? The unknown loomed larger than ever, threatening to unravel the fragile fabric they had begun to weave together. Jake hesitated, his heart racing at the sudden interruption. The doorbell echoed in the silence, the weight of his thoughts blending with a sense of urgency. He exchanged a quick glance with Lily, whose expression mirrored his own mix of anxiety and curiosity. What had he gotten himself into? Taking a deep breath, he rose and opened the door, his instincts screaming at him to prepare for whatever could lie on the other side. The cold draft swept through, accompanied by a figure cloaked in a dark coat, a sharp contrast to the bright snow outside. A man, tall and imposing, stepped into the light of the hallway, his eyes scanning the room like a hawk searching for prey. "Are you Jake Turner?" the stranger asked, the tone flat yet charged with an undercurrent of threat. "Who's asking?" Jake replied, instinctively alert. His past experiences had taught him to guard against adversities. Trust was a luxury he could not afford. "I'm Mark Hansen, representing Lily's legal interests," he said, the corners of his mouth tugging back in a way that felt anything but friendly. "We need to discuss her situation." Panic prickled under Jake's skin, but he forced his features to remain calm. "She can speak for herself," he said, urgency tightening his voice. He stepped back, motioning Lily to stay behind him as he chose to stand grounded, protectively. Mark's gaze shifted to Lily, assessing. "This isn't just a friendly visit, Jake. She's in serious trouble. Her ex doesn't just want her back. He wants to destroy everything she has left." The words detonated in the room, sending shockwaves through Jake's carefully constructed facade. Lily blanched, a shadow crossing her face. "I can't go back, Jake. Not now, not ever," she whispered, her voice trembling. The fear in her eyes ignited Jake's instincts. He could protect her, or he could let the darkness slip in. The thought settled uncomfortably, casting doubt into his mind. Jake's heart raced with a different kind of fear. He had willingly opened his life to her. Now he felt utterly responsible. If her past came crashing down on them, what would become of his children? Would they have to flee? The enormity of the choice lay heavy, demanding clear action. "Lily deserves to decide her fate," Jake finally replied, directing his fierce gaze back to Mark. "Whatever dealings you think you can conduct here, they need to include her. I'm not hiding behind walls anymore." The conviction in his voice surprised even himself, pushing him toward a confidence he had always doubted. The tension in the room shifted. Mark seemed to reassess, narrowing his eyes, but not dismissing the man shielding the woman he represented. Then he said, "Having a mechanic on her side might just be what she needs. Let's talk about what your involvement could mean." Jake felt a flicker of something igniting deep within him, a sense of purpose beyond the grease and wrenches of his shop, an identity reformed not by circumstance but by choice. He could not remain static. He saw the opportunity to help, not just a woman in need, but also to confront the looming shadows in his own life. As they began laying plans, the possibilities opened up in ways he had never considered, weaving together threads of hope and possibility. But as Jake glanced back at Lily, he internally braced for the storm to come. The real battle hadn't even started yet. Would he be the protector he needed to be, or would the weight of her dark legacy drag them both down? Jake took a deep breath, the door now firmly closed, yet standing at the threshold of a monumental shift. Would he navigate this tumultuous path with purpose, or would his resolve be tested in ways he could never foresee? With the walls closing in, he wondered, when would it become clear what decision he truly needed to make? Jake leaned against the wall, the weight of Mark's words settling across his shoulders like a shroud. The atmosphere inside the small, warmly lit hallway felt oddly oppressive, laden with expectations and unknown intentions. He could see Mark's composed exterior hiding deeper calculations, while Lily, her expression a mirror of uncertainty, stood silently behind him. "Tell me what you need from me," Jake said, the assertiveness of his earlier declaration waning under the pressure of his surroundings. He was a mechanic, not a fighter. Navigating complex emotions was one thing, but this was a battle he felt ill-prepared for. Mark hesitated, visibly reassessing Jake's determination. "Right now, you're her support. That means understanding the situation fully. Lily's ex, Matt, will leverage any vulnerability he can find. You need to be prepared for his tactics." The mention of Matt's name sent a cold bolt through Jake. He began imagining a man capable of anything, a shadowy figure casting a dark past that threatened their fragile present. What sort of tactics are we talking about? "Emotional manipulation, legal maneuvering, intimidation," Mark replied bluntly. "He's not above playing dirty. You need to understand what's at stake here." Jake felt his defenses heighten. He glanced at Lily, who looked both fragile and fierce. She had chosen to fight for her life, but now her struggles became his. Would he empower her or inadvertently bring harm? The uncertainty gnawed at him. "What do you need me to do?" Jake asked, his voice steadying, each word a commitment to his new role. Mark glanced at Lily, who nodded once, her eyes firm. We need to gather evidence of his harassment, communication records, document everything he does to intimidate her, Mark instructed. Since you're close to her, you can help turn the tables by being her protective ally. Jake nodded, clenching his hands into fists as determination surged through his veins. The thought of Matt imposing his will on Lily stoked a fire in him that he hadn't known existed. Perhaps this was more than just an external battle. He was starting to see an internal transformation, embracing the protector role, not just for Lily, but for himself and his children. "Let's get started," Jake said, the decision firm on his lips. Identifying their course of action grounded him. As the weight of uncertainty began to lift, he felt the onset of his own capabilities. He gathered his tools. His laptop had been all but retired until now. It was time to bring it back to life, to turn it into a weapon they could use against the oppressor. Sitting across from Lily, who was now entirely awake to their shared cause, he felt a side of his old self emerging. This wasn't just fixing broken cars, this was about rebuilding hope. And as they began to work on a plan, clicking keys punctuated by bursts of conversation about what to look for and how to document, Jake found himself opening up with Lily. Anecdotes of his own past, threads of determination woven through his parenting struggles began to form a tapestry of camaraderie. The notion of struggling alone transformed into that of sharing burdens, casting shadows into the light together. But still, the fear of the inevitable confrontation loomed like a shadow at the edge of their budding alliance. What would happen when Matt retaliated? Would Jake's newfound strength be enough? The moment was fragile, brimming with potential, yet underscored by an all-encompassing tension. As their focus intensified, deep in the recesses of his mind, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was only the precursor to something greater. The stakes wouldn't merely be Lily's life this time. They would entwine with his and perhaps reshape both their destinies. As Jake looked at Lily, resolved for the challenge ahead, a thought circled through his mind. When would the storm break, and what sacrifices would he have to make to keep her safe? Jake's fingers danced over the keyboard, driven by a sense of urgency he hadn't felt in years. His heart raced, each keystroke a testament not just to his resolve, but to the burgeoning understanding of his capabilities. As he and Lily collaborated on compiling records, he could feel their connection strengthen. She was more than just a woman, facing an unrelenting ghost from her past. She was a spark that ignited a dormant desire within him to stand for something greater. Each tale he shared from his life, fraught with rugged trials and small victories as a single dad, revealed a layer of skin that had grown thick over time. Jake realized that he had weathered storms before. They'd come in various forms, from balancing bills to managing heartbreak. But this was different. The stakes were higher. The ideas of self-identity and protective instinct began to weave together tightly, illuminating a pathway he hadn't envisioned for himself. "What if we set up a digital trail?" Jake proposed, his voice steady, brimming with authority he had been shy to exercise before. "If we can capture his messages, document any social media interactions, it might give us material to take to the authorities." Lily's eyes brightened at the suggestion. "That could work. If we can put together a timeline showing how he's harassed me, it could help build a case." There was something about her excitement that flared Jake's resolve even further. He wasn't just a pawn in this game. He was at the helm, guiding with purpose. As they pieced together a framework for their plan, Jake began to realize that the transformations he sought weren't just about surviving this ordeal. It was about embracing who he wanted to become. The layers of fear and doubt started peeling away, revealing an empowered version of himself. It dawned on him that in helping Lily, he was unearthing a part of himself that had long been dormant. Yet, in the midst of this newfound clarity, something gnawed at his subconscious. The idea of confrontation loomed larger. Uncertainty about Matt's retaliation cast a shadow over their progress, and the question lingered, would he be enough to protect Lily from the demons of her past? Every decision they made drew him closer to a reckoning with his own fears. They could gather evidence, create a plan, but ultimately it would lead to a face-off with a man whose shadow loomed large in Lily's life, and now his too. What if something went wrong? Jake, Lily finally broke his thoughts, her voice softer yet unwavering. I need to know that you're in this with me. This isn't just about evidence, it's about your safety too. He understood her concern, the vulnerability in her admission. It was a bond formed not just through strategy, but shared risk. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her gaze. It was more than just commitment. It felt like an unspoken promise that they would emerge from this. I'm here for you, always, he promised, the gravity of the words settling between them. They embraced for a brief moment, a silent pact against the impending storm. But as Jake pulled back, the tension in his gut twisted anew. What lay ahead was still shrouded in uncertainty. They were building a foundation, a digital fortress against intimidation, but the heart of the battle still awaited. As dangerous as it was, a part of Jake welcomed the complexity of the challenge ahead. It felt like the ultimate test of his character. Would he rise to the occasion, or would fear turn him into a ghost of his former self? As they set their sights on gathering their evidence, Jake couldn't help but wonder what deeper challenges lay in wait, hidden like landmines beneath the surface. The storm was coming, and he needed to be ready for the confrontation that was undoubtedly nearing. Jake leaned back in his chair, the hum of the computer fading into the background as his thoughts spiraled. With each passing day, the stakes grew higher, not just for Lily, but for himself too. He was no longer the man who drifted through life, burdened by routine and the weight of past failures. He was stepping into a role that demanded courage and clarity, qualities he had always believed inhabited someone else. As they meticulously organized the evidence, Jake felt the thrill of purpose wrap around him like a familiar coat, one he'd almost forgotten existed in his closet. Each document they sorted became a brick in the wall of protection they were building against the turmoil that seemed to shadow Lily. Let's schedule specific times to check for new messages, he suggested, a newfound decisiveness coloring his words. This needs to be methodical. Lily nodded. I agree. A structured plan will be harder to disrupt. The dialogue flowed easily as they exchanged ideas, and every moment together reinforced their growing synergy. The walls he had built around his emotions began to show cracks, revealing a sense of companionship he hadn't known he craved. He enjoyed her laughter, the sharpness of her mind, and the way she challenged him to think critically. They weren't just creating a defense for her. He was rekindling a piece of himself he thought he might have lost forever, a part that sought connection and to face adversity. As night fell, bathed in the glow of his laptop, Jake took a moment to breathe deeply, trying to reconcile his growing feelings with the chaos that surrounded them. But with the burgeoning partnership came a brush with fear, a fear of failing to protect her, not just from Matt, but from his own inadequacies. What if he wasn't enough when the moment came? Testing the resolve growing within him, he turned to Lily. I've been thinking, what if Matt escalates? He's unpredictable. We can't ignore that. Her brow furrowed, and he could see the wheels turning in her mind. True, but we have to be prepared. It's about anticipating his every move. Yes, Jake replied, his heartbeat quickening, and we need to ensure that we're not just reacting. We have to stay one step ahead of him. Amidst their discussions, something profound registered within him, a realization that pushing past his limits had begun to unveil strengths he didn't know he possessed. He had always been the protector, but now he had the chance to be proactive. Jake remembered the moments when he felt crushed by responsibilities. He realized they had shaped him, carving out the capability to thrive under pressure. Strength wasn't just about physical courage, it involved mental fortitude too. The unease that settled in his stomach as night grew darker began to morph into pure determination. Their digital framework wasn't merely defensive, it was a strategic play, a leap toward empowerment. If they were to stop Matt, they must also confront the truths about their own fears and vulnerabilities. Just as the implications of their collaboration began to sink in, a new tension twisted in Jake's gut. His phone buzzed, and a chill raced up his spine. The message was from an unknown number. "Stop helping her, Jake. You have no idea what you're getting into." Staring at the screen, Jake's fingers gripped the phone tightly. Behind that message lay layers of foreboding. Who was this? Was it Matt? The thought shot through him like ice water, chilling all the confidence he had built. "I think we have trouble," Jake murmured as he shared the message with Lily, a sense of urgency coiling within him. The confrontation he had anticipated loomed ever closer, and all the growth he had experienced felt fragile against this impending chaos. What would this obstacle reveal about Jake? As he braced himself for the storm that was surely brewing, he couldn't help but wonder if he was truly ready to face what lay ahead. Jake's heart raced as he and Lily exchanged anxious glances. The weight of the unknown pressed heavily on him, transforming their previous camaraderie into palpable tension. He wrestled with his gut instinct, the knowledge that this was more than just an ominous message. Every fiber of his being screamed that they had crossed a threshold deeper into something dangerous, and the feeling both thrilled and terrified him. "Do you think it's from Matt?" Lily's voice trembled, breaking the silence. "Possibly," Jake replied, forcing himself to appear calm despite the storm brewing inside him. "But we can't let fear dictate our actions. We need to control the narrative here." He knew he could no longer afford to be reactive. This was his opportunity to dig deeper into the roots of the threat, to strategize, and to frame the game on his terms. Embracing this new mindset awakened something within him, a steely determination to protect Lily, coupled with a determination to reclaim his own narrative. When Jake suggested they analyze the message further, a plan sprouted in his mind, demanding fervent attention. They needed to trace the source of the message, understand the threat they were dealing with, and stay ahead, combining their efforts into a unified front, not just against Matt, but also against the creeping doubts within themselves. "Let's start with the phone number," he said, his mind sharpening as he focused on the task ahead. "We can do a reverse lookup. Maybe we can figure out who sent this." As Lily worked on documenting their findings, Jake grabbed his laptop and began typing furiously. Distraction from the anxiety coursing through him became an imperative tool. It was a welcome change from the weight he had felt moments before. Each keystroke felt like a step away from fear and into action. He could feel his resolve transforming into clarity, his decisions becoming part of a larger plan, leading toward a single goal: keeping Lily safe. Hours passed, their collaboration taking on a rhythm, inputting data, analyzing past interactions with Matt, every detail sharpening their understanding of the situation. They were making strides, but with each accomplishment lurked the shadows of Matt's unpredictable temperament. Would their progress provoke him further? Would he strike harder now that he saw them working together? As they sifted through the chaos, an unexpected consideration crossed Jake's mind. It was one thing to fight against an external force, but another to acknowledge the internal battles they faced. Here he was, stepping into a mantle of authority and responsibility, with each decision chipping away at the insidious self-doubt that had plagued him for so long. "Are you okay?" Lily's voice broke into his thoughts, her concern reflecting back at him like a mirror. "Yeah, just thinking," he said. But it was true. Alongside their immediate threat, he had to confront his lingering insecurities. The message wasn't just a warning. It encapsulated his past failures, encounters where he felt powerless when faced with challenges. "I don't want to seem reckless," he admitted, feeling his vulnerability rise. "I want to keep you safe, yet—" "You have to believe in yourself, Jake," she interjected. Her words, mixed with an earnestness, hit him hard. "You've overcome so much already. This is just another challenge. We will handle it together."
Her faith in him ignited a flicker of hope, stirring the depths of his belief. What if he truly could step into this new role, alongside her, a partner in both protection and purpose? With renewed focus, Jake pulled up the number from the message again, determined to take control of the situation. The time for mere reaction was fading. It was time to execute their plan. Suddenly, the screen flickered and a notification chimed. A new message. With a mixture of excitement and dread, Jake opened it. "Are you ready for what's coming? Because you're going to wish you hadn't gotten involved." The ultimatum pulsed in the darkness, echoing the realities of their precarious situation. With every word, he felt the stakes heighten again. It was not just about protecting Lily anymore. It was about discovering a strength he hadn't known he possessed and facing the confrontation that lay ahead. What would this next step become for Jake? Faced with escalating threats, he had to decide. Would he fully embrace this newfound strength, or let the fear of failure consume him like it had in the past? The answer loomed just beyond the horizon. Jake stared at the screen, his heart pounding against his chest.
Like a caged animal desperate for freedom. The chilling words swirled around in his mind, stirring remnants of self-doubt, while also igniting a new determination. What did Matt know that they didn't? Were they really ready for whatever storm was heading their way? He shifted in his seat, the glow from the laptop illuminating the growing shadows in the corners of the room. "Jake, are you okay?" Lily's voice had a hint of urgency, pulling him back to the present. He took a breath, focusing on her face. Her brows knit in concern, which drove home the point. This wasn't just about him anymore. He had to step up, not just for his sake, but for Lily's too. "Yeah, just processing everything," he replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "We need to act fast. I suggest we gather everything we've got so far and develop our next steps." Lily nodded, her previous trepidation receding as they fell into their rhythm once more. They continued to dig deeper into Matt's background, piecing together a profile while also noting his network of associates. With every new detail, Jake felt the thrill of progress softening his inner fears. This meticulous work sharpened his resolve. Maybe he really could handle this challenge. Over the next hours, adrenaline fueled their late-night efforts. The chaos of their thoughts began transforming into clarity as they created a visual map of the tangled web surrounding Matt, the people he interacted with, the places he frequented, and most importantly, the contacts that shrouded him in a cloak of anonymity. But as their research advanced, so did the nagging thoughts in Jake's mind. With every fact they uncovered about Matt, a piece of Jake's own history echoed back. His own past decisions littered with moments of indecision and missed opportunities. He felt anger stir, both at Matt for putting them in this position and at himself for letting fear dictate so much of his life until now. Lily interrupted his spiraling thoughts again. "You know, we can't forget why we're doing this. It's not just about gathering intel. We need to empower ourselves." "Empower ourselves," Jake repeated, the words igniting something within him. The journey wasn't merely about stopping Matt. It was an opportunity for him to redefine what he was capable of. The fear of failure could still linger, but it would no longer have the final say. "We'll work it through methodically," he assured her, his voice infused with newfound determination. "And when the time comes, we'll confront him head-on, together." The synergy of their teamwork was becoming an impenetrably strong force. They shared not just the burden of this task, but their aspirations to transform this fear into empowerment. As dawn crept closer, a sense of purpose radiated between them, a quiet strength. Yet the weight of what was forthcoming loomed heavily over Jake. In a brief moment of clarity, he realized this wasn't just a test of his ability to protect Lily. It was a revelation about his own capability to change the narrative, rewrite his story, and emerge victorious. But he needed to prepare himself fully for potential confrontations, for the inevitable backlash that Matt would unleash. Then, before he could overthink their next move, another message pinged on the laptop. With dread pooling in the pit of his stomach, he clicked on the notification. This time, an image surfaced, a stark visual that froze him in his tracks. It was a photo of Lily, taken from a distance, her figure small but undeniably identifiable against the backdrop of her neighborhood. Fear prickled his skin. Matt was escalating things. Jake's heart raced once again, but this time it carried a different weight, anger interspersed with the determination to face whatever came next. That moment crystallized into clarity for Jake. The fight was no longer optional. He was compelled to act, to protect, to confront. The moment had arrived to prove to himself and to Matt exactly what he was capable of. The stakes had risen significantly. Would he be able to harness this newly awakened strength in the face of a relentless adversary? Or would this confrontation finally expose his vulnerabilities in ways he never anticipated? Jake's mind raced as he processed the implications of the picture. Lily's life was now interwoven with the threat that Matt represented. He felt the surge of protective instincts overtake him. He had to devise a plan, one that not only shielded Lily, but also restored his own sense of purpose. "Lily," he said, his voice steady, laced with urgency, "we need to think of our next steps carefully. We can't let fear dictate our actions, but we can't be reckless either." She looked up, her eyes reflecting the same fierce determination that had ignited within him. "What do you have in mind?" He sat back in his chair, tapping his fingers on the desk, the conflict within him manifesting in anxious energy. Every move they made now had immediate consequences. It was no longer just reconnaissance, but a matter of preemptive strategy. He considered all angles, what they knew, the network around Matt, what they still had left to uncover. "We should reach out to those in Matt's circle, find someone who may have insight into his dealings. Maybe an associate or even a competitor," Jake suggested. "We could pose as potential allies, gather intel that way." Lily nodded thoughtfully. The plan had merit. It involved a level of deception that felt uncomfortable but necessary. "And if it backfires?" "That's a risk we have to take," he replied, the weight of their situation settling over him heavily. "What other options do we have? We either act or we retreat back into fear." The resolve in her gaze steeled his own determination. "All right, let's make a list of contacts." As they meticulously charted out potential targets, Jake found the methodical approach strangely calming. This was the clarity he craved, the sense of agency fluttering alive within him. He realized that this was not just about dealing, it was about redefining what he was capable of, both as a partner and as a protector. Once the contact list was formed, Jake felt a swell of confidence. Each name represented a thread of opportunity, an opening to gain the upper hand. But as they prepared, another wave of anxiety pressed against him. The fear of Matt's next move loomed, threatening to unravel their progress. "What if he already knows?" Jake asked, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. "What if every step we take is already anticipated?" Lily hesitated, but met his gaze firmly. "Then we have to outsmart him. Your past mistakes don't dictate your future actions. You're not that same person anymore." Her words acted as a balm, soothing the remnants of self-doubt still whispering in the back of his mind. There was truth in them. He recognized the individual he was becoming. The fear that once paralyzed him was now a powerful fuel for change, inspiring him to push forward, to reclaim control. The hours blurred as they strategized, the incessant clicking of the keyboard punctuating their intensity. Jake felt a renewed sense of focus wash over him, tight and unwavering. For the first time, he was looking beyond immediate survival. He was aiming for victory. Yet a nagging concern tugged at the edges of his confidence. How far was he willing to go in this pursuit? In confronting Matt, he would need to grapple not just with an adversary externally, but with his own inner demons. As he forged ahead, that realization shadowed him, an ongoing internal conflict that pressed against his newfound clarity. A notification jolted them both out of their deep focus. Another message appeared on the screen, this one not just directed at Jake, but a broader warning, a looming challenge that indicated they were not just players on a board, but pieces under surveillance. As Jake stared at the screen, the next phase of their battle loomed ahead. Undeterred, he recognized the stakes just escalated further. They would have to move fast, be shrewd, and prepare for an unexpected confrontation. "Are you ready for what comes next?" he asked Lily, steeling himself for the uncertain path ahead. A determined smile crossed her face, a profound recognition of shared purpose settling between them. They were in this together. Whatever came next would test them both in ways they had yet to imagine. But as the clock ticked relentlessly forward, a deeper question lingered in Jake's mind. Was he truly prepared to confront not only Matt, but the shadows of his own past? The weight of that uncertainty loomed, forcing him to hold his breath as he braced for what lay just ahead. The tension in the room felt palpable as Jake and Lily ironed out the details of their plan. The daunting prospect of conversation lingered. Each contact on their list was potentially an ally or a trap. The risk of exposure hung over them like a smothering fog, but they needed the intel. They had to push beyond their own trepidation into the unknown. Right after lunch, while Jake paced the small confines of his living room, he mentally rehearsed the phone call to Kenneth, someone rumored to have an association with Matt. Kenneth was known for being shrewd, yet self-serving. Jake had learned through previous work that relationships built on hidden agendas could topple like dominoes with the slightest disturbance. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Lily asked, breaking the silence that had settled between them. Her brow was furrowed in concern. "What if he finds out we're not who we say we are?" Confidence crackled through him, but he couldn't deny the trepidation coiling around his gut. "He won't find out if we're careful. We'll approach this as if we're genuinely interested in a deal." Jake locked eyes with Lily, remembering the flame of determination that inspired him just hours before. "Matt is dangerous, but that means we have to be smarter and more strategic. I'm not the same person who avoided confrontations before." The moment hung between them, the gravity of what lay ahead solidifying the air. Lily's gaze softened, and he sensed her understanding, her unwavering belief in his transformation. It inspired Jake, escalating his internal resolve. In preparation, Jake rifled through his file of notes about Kenneth, pulling out quotes, business propositions, and inconsistencies in previous conversations. Every detail mattered. If they were to enter the lion's den, they would need proper armor. He felt the familiar warmth of focus envelop him, putting aside previous doubts, leaving only clarity and purpose. When he finally made the call, Jake's heart raced, not from fear, but from adrenaline. There was a sharpness to his speech that surprised even him as he introduced himself, weaving a narrative of interest in a potential partnership. At times, Kenneth's tone raised suspicions, but Jake skillfully sidestepped every probing question, redirecting the conversation to mutual interests. "Let's meet," Kenneth proposed after 10 minutes of discourse, intrigued but cautious. "I have some ideas that could benefit both of us, but I need to know more about your intentions." As Jake hung up, a wave of mixed emotions rushed through him, part relief, part anxiety. He'd opened the door, but now they needed to tread carefully across dangerous terrain. "He wants to meet," Jake announced, his voice steady, a hint of triumph tempering the undertones of worry. Lily shivered next to him, the reality of the situation dawning. "When?" "Tomorrow afternoon," he replied, focusing on the task. They had little time to prepare, and uncertainty gnawed at his focus. "We need to come up with a story. Think about what we can offer him and how we can guide the conversation to extract information." As they worked together, piecing together their approach, the mission started to feel less abstract and more urgent.
Yet with every plan they crafted, Jake's inner conflict rippled beneath the surface. Was he sure he could hold his own against someone like Kenneth?
His history had been marred by failures in similar situations, and self-doubt crept uninvited into his thoughts. "Jake," Lily's voice pulled him from the depth of his doubt. "What if this doesn't go as planned? What if we reveal too much too soon?" He took a deep breath, grounding himself. "We can't let what-ifs control us. Action is our only option. We fight fear with knowledge and strategy." Lily nodded, though her eyes hinted at the concern she still harbored. Beyond the business at hand lay the more profound confrontation Jake dreaded. It wasn't just facing Matt, it was confronting what it meant to move past the mistakes of his past. As he prepared for the meeting, Jake realized a truth he had to embrace. He was not merely an actor in someone else's play. He had the power to direct his future, wielding past lessons as his guide rather than as chains binding him. The next morning, as Jake stood before the mirror adjusting his tie, he felt the weight of expectations settle on his shoulders. He wasn't just stepping into a meeting, he was stepping into a new identity. The inner journey, while foreboding, had shifted gears from dread to determination. Yet the reality of the upcoming confrontation lingered like a tempest on the horizon. What truths would Kenneth unveil about Matt and himself? Would he continue down this path of newfound courage, or would the shadows of his past consume him? "Are you ready?" Lily's voice pierced through his turbulent thoughts as she checked her reflection one last time. "I'm not turning back," he whispered, more to himself than to her. And as they drove toward their uncertain fate, a different question loomed, sharpening the tension. Would Jake emerge from this confrontation as a man entirely renewed, or would he fall back into the comfortable pit of fear he had only just begun to escape? The sun hung low in the sky as Jake and Lily approached the appointed meeting place, a discreet diner tucked away on the outskirts of town. Each step felt heavier than the last, but Jake's resolve burned brighter. He was ready to confront not just Kenneth, but the tangled web of emotions and fears that had overshadowed him for years. No longer just a mechanic battling bills and responsibilities, he was becoming an ally, a protector, and perhaps even more. As they settled into their booth, Lily's nervous fingers drummed against the table, but a shared glance between them solidified a burgeoning alliance. They exchanged ideas for what to prioritize in the discussion, gathering information about Matt, proving their value to Kenneth, and assessing any potential dangers. "Stick to the plan," Jake urged, tapping his watch, the weight of time pressing against them. "We get what we need, and then we make our escape." Lily nodded, her determination mirroring his own, yet there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "What will we do if he pushes too hard or asks about Matt?" "Then we'll adapt," Jake replied, the quiet confidence in his voice surprising even him. There was no turning back. As the minutes trickled by, Jake steered their conversation, asserting a preliminary confidence. He narrated fabricated business ventures, just convincing enough to align their interest with Kenneth's. The shrewdness he sought to emulate began to emerge, and with it, the realization that he could navigate this terrain. When Kenneth finally arrived, studying them both with an intensity that made Jake's breath hitch, Jake's heart raced, but he stood firm. Kenneth's eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. "So you're the mechanic," he said, a hint of skepticism woven through his words. "That's right," Jake replied, unwavering as he met Kenneth's gaze. "I know my way around cars, but I also understand people. We all have something to gain, don't we?" Lily chimed in, her voice steady. "If we work together, we could find a way to mutually benefit each other." They played their roles perfectly, Jake feeling a sense of ease washing over him as he navigated the conversation. Kenneth, suspicious yet intrigued, began to reveal tantalizing glimpses about Matt's past dealings, bolstering their efforts while also creating opportunities for extraction. Yet, as their discussion deepened, a sudden twist struck fear through Jake's heart. The mention of Matt triggered a memory, a painful acknowledgement of the complexities of confronting the past, not just for Lily, but for himself as well. Would he be able to stand strong when the real battle began?
As Kenneth shifted in his seat, the question lingered. How far would they go to secure their safety? What choices would they need to make in these moments of fragility? Suddenly, a flicker of defiance ignited within him, propelled by the empowering bond he had formed with Lily. They were not just allies for this moment, they were a team driven by shared purpose, confronting fears together. Amidst the ebb and flow of conversation, Jake felt the weight of his past dissolve, revealing glimpses of the man he wanted to become. The fears that once dictated his decisions now became mere background noise, overshadowed by this new resolve. When the diner's door swung open moments later and Matt stepped in, the atmosphere shifted like the calm before the storm. Time froze as the shadow of his presence loomed large. "Lily," Matt's voice cut through the air like a blade, "you can't hide from me." He scanned the room, narrows of intensity locking onto Jake with terrible scrutiny. Panic sprinkled through Jake's thoughts as the grip of fear threatened to pull him under, but he clung to the newfound strength within. He wouldn't allow Matt's shadow to dampen their hard-earned progress. Sensing Lily's tension, he squeezed her hand under the table, his silent promise reinforcing her courage. "We're here to talk," Jake declared, his voice rising above the tension. "To make sure she feels safe moving forward." The conviction in his words surprised him. It was a challenge, one that ignited a firestorm.
Would they be able to hold their ground against an unpredictable adversary? Matt's cold laugh echoed in contrast to the warmth of the diner. "And what makes you think you can protect her?" Fear lifted from Jake's shoulders as he found the clarity to respond. "Because I've helped her fight the demons that tried to consume her, and I'm not going anywhere." The confrontation wasn't merely physical, it was a display of emotional armament, carving their intentions clear. Jake's resolve propelled him forward, step by step, as the pieces began to align for a formidable counterattack. Within that fierce exchange, he recognized a profound growth, inner confidence solidifying like concrete. No longer would he lean into fear. He had to fully embrace this power to protect Lily. This battle wasn't just about confronting Matt. It meant confronting the barriers that had long held him back from asserting who he was, the warrior fighting for their shared future. As Lily interjected with a deep inhale, they stood together, their forces united against the swirl of darkness that threatened to drown them. The moment crystallized. For Jake, it was more than survival. It was an affirmation that he was ready to step into the unknown, to forge a new identity from the remnants of his past. With that fierce realization, Jake transformed. He charged ahead into the chaos, determined to emerge triumphantly, not as a victim, but as a champion. What stakes would follow remained uncertain, yet one tingling truth settled deep within him. This was the moment he would rewrite his narrative. No more shadows, no more silence. He would be bold, a mechanic turned defender, a single dad ready to conquer not only the obstacles linked to Matt, but the lingering doubts that had once defined him. And as he prepared for the battle ahead, he felt ready in a way he never had before. Embracing their unfolding journey together, he realized the empowerment they shared was destined to transcend the confines of singular struggles. Together, they would rise against the tide, fiercely ready to unearth the victories that awaited. Remember, decisive choices ignite profound change. Now is the time for you to commit. Subscribe immediately to our channel. Don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will further enlighten your path. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every interaction helps grow this positive community. Share your reactions and theories about the conclusion in the comments below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering finale. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through action. Decisive choices ignite profound change. Now is the time for you to commit. Subscribe immediately to our channel. Don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will further enlighten your path. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every interaction helps grow this positive community. Share your reactions and theories about the conclusion in the comments below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering finale. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through action.